Is it such a bad thing to be nice? To see the best in people, places, situations, or life in general? Because sometimes I think that we forget how weird it is that we are even here in the first place. Like, seriously, we are alive, we're human, we're consciousness, we're experiencing this mortal, not forever lasting thing that we call real. And somehow we've all just collectively decided to wake up every morning and go about our lives, make choices, build things, meet people, lose people, learn things, forget things, and somehow figure out what the heck we're all doing along the way. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I actually stop and think about that, it feels a lot like a game. Not in the sense that none of this matters, but actually kind of the opposite. It matters so much. But think about it some more. You start basically with nothing. You don't know how to walk or talk, and you don't know what anything is. You don't know what you're doing. And then slowly, you learn. You get a little bit better, and you figure out something else that's new. You unlock something new, and suddenly you're able to do things that you couldn't do before. It's almost like the beginning of any good game. You spawn in, and the game doesn't immediately hand you just everything on a silver platter. You have to go and you have to figure it out. You have to learn what things to do. You have to learn to make mistakes, and you have to make those mistakes as well. You also have to figure out what works, and sometimes you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, but you keep going anyway. And I think that that's one of the strangest parts about this life. Nobody gives you the full instruction manual, and you don't spawn in, like I mentioned, with a giant screen that says, "Welcome, here are the next 80 years of your life and exactly what you should do." Wouldn't that be nice? Instead, you're just kind of here, and you have to figure it out. So you learn from people around you, you learn from experiences, and you learn from what happens when you make one choice instead of another choice. And eventually, you start realizing that there isn't actually one way to play. There's actually so many ways to play and to experience this thing. Some people say want to build, some people want to explore, some people want to create, some want to help other people, and some want to spend their entire lives learning. Some people want to adventure, some just want a quiet life, and some want a little bit of everything, which is totally okay. And none of those automatically make one person better or worse than another. They're just different ways to play the game. And I think we're actually really good at forgetting that, because we look around at everybody else playing their version of their game, and then somehow we decide that we are playing ours wrong. You see somebody who has already built their giant house, and you're standing here with a stack of wood at the very beginning thinking, well, crap. But you don't know what their world looked like when they started. You don't know how long they've been playing. You don't know when or what they had to learn. You don't know what they've lost or what they've had to rebuild. You're just kind of looking at their screen and comparing it to your beginning. And honestly, that doesn't make a lot of sense, at least not to me. Because if this really is a game, then there is no reason for everybody to have the same, say, inventory. There's no reason for everybody to be on the same level. And there's also no reason for everybody to have the same map. And that's part of what makes this life interesting. You can choose how to play. You can choose how you play. And let me say that again. You can choose how you play. You can also decide halfway through that the thing that you wanted isn't actually what you want anymore. And that's allowed. You can put down the sword and pick up a shovel. You can stop exploring for a while and choose to just build a house. You can, say, spend 6 hours doing something completely pointless, literally just because it makes you happy. And then tomorrow, you can wake up and decide you want to do something completely different. There's not necessarily one correct way to play. And maybe that's why being in quotes behind is such a weird concept. Like, behind who? Behind what? Behind a timeline that somebody else made? Because if we're all playing completely different versions of the game, how could there possibly be one universal timeline that we're all supposed to follow? That said, you aren't late. You're just where you are. And sometimes where you are really absolutely sucks. And so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that every part of this game is fun, because it isn't. Sometimes the game is completely unfair. Sometimes you do everything right and something still goes wrong. Sometimes you do everything wrong and it still goes all right. Sometimes you lose something you have worked really hard for, and sometimes everybody else gets something that you desperately wanted. Sometimes you are going to do everything that you can think of, and you are still going to stand there wondering, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? And I think that's also a continuation of where this game gets interesting. Because what do you do then when the thing that you planned doesn't work? Do you quit? Do you sit there staring at the screen? Do you blame yourself? Do you blame the game? Do you blame others? Or do you look around and figure out what else you can do? Or try to figure out what else you can do? Because there is almost always something else you can do. Maybe it isn't what you originally planned, maybe it isn't even something you would have necessarily chosen, but it's there. And sometimes the thing that you end up doing because your original plan failed ends up actually being better than the thing you were trying to force in the first place. And that's one of the reasons I think that we are not supposed to know what exactly is going to happen. We can't. We just can't. If you knew everything that was going to happen, where would the game be? Where would the game take you? Where would you go? What would you do? It just doesn't work. If you knew every twist, every person, every loss that you would have in this game, every win that you'd have in this game, every place you were going to go, or every decision you were going to ever make, there would be nothing left to discover. And that is the point. And like I've talked about in the past, I think that's also why we get uncomfortable with uncertainty. We want that map. We want the coordinates. We want the answer. We want to know all of the answers to all of the questions. Am I doing this right? Is the decision that I've made correct? Is this going to work? What is going to happen? But what if, like I keep saying, you're just not supposed to know yet? The whole point is that you are trying to figure out and find out by playing. Because that's how you learn. You don't learn a game and you don't learn anything in this life by reading every possible thing about it. Eventually, you have to actually just play. You have to try something and see what happens, and then you adjust and you learn and you try again and you continue and you get better. That's literally how we live. We make a decision and we experience the result, cause and effect, right? Sometimes it's exactly what we expected, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's way better, or other times way worse. And sometimes you don't understand what the experience means or meant until years later. And see, that's the part that actually gets me, because there are things that happened months or even years ago that I thought were completely random, completely pointless, and okay, maybe even terrible at the time. And then later, something happens. More pieces of the puzzle start to show up and start to fill in the holes, and then suddenly I'm here thinking, oh my gosh, that's why that happened. That's why this happened. That makes so much more sense. And I'm not saying that you will know why everything happens. I don't think that it's possible to know that. But I do think that we also have this incredible ability to take what happens to us and create meaning from it. We can learn from it and we can turn it into something different. See, it's ironic because there are things in our lives that'll happen and it will begin to make us question everything. It will affect our ability to keep up with what we may have once been able to do. And while you are there in those moments and in the time of said thing happening, it will feel almost impossible to you, as if you are trapped. But trapped by your own doing, because you know why you are here. You know where you are and why you are here. You know what got you there, and you also know how to get out. Yet for some reason, you choose to stay where you are. Now this makes me personally question, do we for some reason enjoy this part of the game? Why else would we stay there if this isn't the case? And maybe that's one of the biggest parts of the game. You don't always get to choose what happens, but you do get to choose what you do with what happens. Not that that's easy, but I think that's where our experience begins to really actually become ours. Because two people can go through almost the exact same situation and walk away with completely different experiences. Think of, say, Meet the Robinsons. Like, you take this story and you see these two different characters, and one person goes on to have a hero's journey, and the other person goes on to have the villain's story. Two completely different experiences, right? Going back to it, one person sees the loss, and the other sees what they learned. One sees the ending, while the other sees the beginning. One sees a dead end, and the other sees, okay, maybe there is actually another path. And neither person is necessarily stupid for seeing it differently. We're all just kind of playing from our own perspectives, once again, our own experiences, our own inventory, our own little map. And that is why I think that being nice matters more than we realize, because you genuinely have no idea and no clue what someone else is carrying around in their inventory at that time. You don't know what level they're on, you don't know what they've already fought, and you don't know what they've lost. You don't know what they're trying to build, and you don't know if they're standing in front of their first tree just starting the game, or if they are actually trying to rebuild after losing everything. So if you do have the opportunity to make someone else's game a little bit easier, why wouldn't you? I mean, that's just my logic, right? Why is kindness seen as a weakness sometimes? Why do we feel like we have to be suspicious of everything? Why can't we just see the best in people? And yeah, sometimes people will disappoint you. They will end up hurting you, and you will be wrong about someone. It's just how life works. But I don't think that means you have to become a person who expects the worst from everyone. You can have those boundaries and those walls up, but you can also be smart, and you can also protect yourself at the same time and still be kind. You can see the best in someone without ignoring reality, and you can also hope for the best without pretending bad things don't happen. Because yeah, I think that life is so much more interesting when you aren't constantly expecting it to disappoint you, as hard and as ironic as it may be. Anyways, that brings me back to the idea of the game, because I also started thinking, what if there are actually rules? Not rules like, you have to do this, or you're only allowed to play this way, but more things like things I've noticed after being here for a while. Things that seem to make the game a little bit more understandable and maybe even more fun, I guess. That said, the first would probably be you're going to want to play alone sometimes, and that's okay. And I 110% am with you on this, and 110% understand this idea. Sometimes you literally just need your own little corner of the map, and you need time where no one is talking to you, where nobody needs anything from you. You can just sit there and do your own thing. But eventually, you're probably going to realize that the game is a lot more fun when you have people to share with. Because what's the point of actually building something amazing if you're never going to show anybody? What's the point of finding out something beautiful if you can't turn around and say, hey, so-and-so, look at this? Yeah, sure, things are going to be fun alone, but they're also going to be fun with other people. There are going to be some experiences that become completely different when someone else is standing next to you. And then there are also going to be times when you're going to need help, and that's another part of the game that makes it way harder than it needs to be. That being, you can ask for help. And yes, I do kind of realize that I may sound ironic to some, specifically to some that know me. But that said, once again, you can ask for help. You don't have to know everything, and you don't have to understand everything. And you definitely don't have to pretend that you do. That is why I'm here, and that is one of the reasons why I want to speak to all of you listening, to anyone who will listen if you have gotten this far in the video, for sure. If you end up getting one thing from this video, please let it be that you don't have to pretend to be okay. There are people that want to help you, and there are people who want to be your friend and who are secretly rooting for you in the background, and you're just not gonna have any idea and any clue that that is actually happening. But there is definitely someone out there who is secretly rooting for you, and there has to be at least some comfort in that. Anyways, back to, as ironic as it sounds, this idea and this thing. If you don't know how something works, you can just ask. If you don't know where you're going, ask. If you don't know how to build something, ask. And if somebody helps you, great. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they give you an answer that makes absolutely no sense. Cool, take it or leave it. Maybe you have to ask somebody else, and that is also okay too, because eventually you're going to be the person that someone actually comes to for help, and you're going to be able to pass along the knowledge that something taught you or somebody else once taught you. And that's how the game keeps going. And then, out of nowhere, you're gonna lose. A lot. You're probably going to lose way more than you win, and I'm just being brutally honest. You're going to make mistakes, you're gonna choose the wrong path, and you're going to eventually say, trust the wrong person, and you're going to, in quotes, waste time. Which, if you know me in the way of thinking, you know that wasting time isn't actually wasting time. You're still going to end up learning something whether you like it or not. But that is a video for another time. Anyways, you're going to build something, and then you're also going to realize halfway through that you don't even like it anymore. You're going to look back and think, what on earth was I doing? What was I doing? But that's not proof that you're not good at the game. That's literally just the game. Because if you never lost, winning wouldn't actually mean anything, or at least not as much. On top of that, if you never failed, success wouldn't feel like success. If everything always worked for you, you wouldn't have to become anything different to handle it. And that's why some of the hardest seasons of our lives actually become the ones we remember the most, because they changed us. Not because we enjoyed them, but they made us stronger and they made us more aware. They teach us things that we could not have learned any other way. And the interesting part is that you don't actually know what level you're on. You don't get to. And you don't get to know or have a notification, I guess, that says, like, congratulations, you have reached level 42. You just wake up one day and realize that something is different. Nothing automatically changes or snaps into place. However, you do kind of just wake up one day and realize that something is indeed different, and that you may have handled something differently or reacted to something differently, and that thing that used to completely destroy you just doesn't as much anymore. That thing that scared you, you are suddenly willing to try and expand on, or attempt at getting better at it, or whatever it is, right? And you don't even remember exactly when it changed. It just kind of did. And yeah, leveling up could look exactly like that, just becoming a little bit more capable of handling the world or level or part of the game that you're already in, and not have to become some completely different version of yourself. But then the game actually gives you something new. Because sure, why not? Of course it does. Why not? Anyways, you finally figure something out, and suddenly there is another challenge, another area, another thing that you don't understand, and at first you were probably thinking, seriously? But eventually you realize something that I have mentioned at the very beginning of this, that if there wasn't anything new to learn, you would definitely and most probably, I know that's not English, get bored. Because the fun isn't in knowing everything. It's in the discovering, it's in the wondering, the going, I wonder what's over there, and going, and walking in that direction. And then also walking through that dark door on the other side of the village to find out exactly what's behind that door. That's what makes the exploration so fun. That said, life also works the same way. There are things you haven't seen yet, and people you haven't met yet, places that you haven't been, and ideas that you haven't thought about. there's also going to be versions of yourself that you haven't become yet. And let's be honest, there's probably a point in your life that you have already been, possibly thinking the exact same way that you are right now, hoping and praying to be out of the point that you are currently in, waiting for the day you could look back and see the outside perspective and realize that it was indeed just another stepping stone to cross the river that you're standing in. And you don't need to know what all of them are right now. You just have to keep playing. You just have to keep moving. You just have to keep exploring and learning, so that every once in a while you can stop. You can look around and realize, wait, yes, I actually did build all of this. This is all me. I did this. Because sometimes we are so focused on the next thing that we forget to look at what we have already done. And I think that that is another rule that would maybe be added, is that you're allowed to stop and look at your world. You're allowed to step back and appreciate what you have already built. Even if that thing is small, and even if it's not what you thought it would be, even if it's not where you're ultimately where you want to be yet. Because this moment that you are in is still part of the game. And I want you to really feel that and really think on that for a moment. Because this moment right here, right now that you are listening or watching this video in, this moment is still part of the game that you are playing. And you're never gonna get this exact moment back. And that sounds so cliche, holy. But it's true. And you don't get to reload the world. You don't get to go back to yesterday. You don't get to go back to 5 years ago with the knowledge that you have now. As much as I know we all wish that that was possible sometimes. You can wish that you had done things differently and you can learn from them. You can make different choices now. But no matter what you do, you cannot go back and play that level again. So, maybe that means we should actually stay on the one that we are on. Not with every answer perfectly or fearlessly, but just play it. We can be so obsessed with figuring out the right way to live, and in turn also learning what the wrong way to live is as well. In doing so, however, we forget to live. We spend so much time planning the build, or can spend so much time planning the build, that we never place the first block, that we stop ourselves from placing the first block, and we spend so much time wondering if we're going to fail that we never actually start. That also said, we also can find ourselves sometimes comparing our inventory to somebody else's, that we don't even notice what we have. And maybe that's also part of the biggest trap in the game. Standing still because you're afraid of making the wrong move. Because whether you're a fan of it or not, eventually, you have to choose. You have to walk through the door and start the adventure. You don't know where it leads, and that is going to be okay. It's okay. Because you're playing the game where the map isn't completely revealed. And like I have mentioned, that's the point. Because again, if everything were already known, there wouldn't be anything left for you to discover. So maybe start trying new things. As examples, build things, break things, go explore new places, allow yourself to get lost and then find your way back. Meet those new people and then help them as well. Allow yourself to accept the help from others in return, and also let yourself lose in order to then win. And then, as need be, start over. Change your mind over and over again, and let yourself build something completely different than what you thought you would. And then maybe, just maybe, at the end of it all, you'll learn that the best player isn't the person with the biggest house, or the most diamonds, or the most achievements, or, say, the highest level. It actually is the person who enjoyed being there the most. The person who looked around every once in a while and thought, wow, just look at all of this. Because we're all going to log off eventually. And I don't say that to make this dark. I say that because the game is more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. And we don't get unlimited time. or unlimited days, and we don't get to keep every person in our life forever, or every experience or thing or whatever it is. We don't get to keep it all forever, or every version of ourselves. So while we are here, why not play? Why not be curious? Why not be kind? Why not build something? Why not take the weird path just to see where it goes? Why not make the game a little bit more fun for others along the way as well? Because that's the whole thing. We're all just standing here in our own little worlds, trying to figure out what we're doing. Some of us are at the stage of building, and some are at the stage of exploring. Some are even completely lost. Some of us are rebuilding back to where we were, or beyond, and some of us are definitely just starting over. And then there are also some of us who are just sitting beside a campfire, looking into the void of absolute nothingness because we just need a minute. But at the end of the day, we're all playing, and nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. We're all just learning as we go, and that is okay. That is the fun part. That is the game. So are you gonna let the game take a hold of you, or are you going to play the game to its fullest extent? Let me know in the comments.